Hi, welcome to the new episode of Sportsy. Let's talk sports. Today we have with us a sports marketing ninja, the guy who getting sports in India on track with his venture India on Track. We have with us Vivek Sethia. Vivek is a seasoned sports industry leader who has worked across cricket, basketball, baseball, and football on commercial side as well as grassroots development side. India on Track, the company he founded and a CEO of, has been set up to build a culture of sports among the youth and create a platform to learn, participate in various disciplines. Working in a sector that is driven by passion, IoT is working on the commitment to help India recognize and celebrate the power of sports, be it recreational or professional. IoT wants to equip India's next generation with the tool to help build a healthier, stronger nation that would have its roots as much in sports as other disciplines. IoT's partnership with La Liga, EPL clubs, Major League Baseball, and many more focuses on the amalgamation of the technical expertise of these leaders in the world of sport. To talk about the development of sport in India, commercialization of sport in India, education of sports in India, please welcome the founder and CEO of India on Track, who believes that the Indian sports organization should not begin their process with a short-term objective only. Instead, they should prepare a strategy that can be sustainable over a longer period. The man who is getting sports in India on track, Vivek Sethia. Uh, hey Vivek, it's great to have you on Sportsy. Let's talk sports.
Thank you, Sid. Great to be here, and really a pleasure.
Yeah, it took some time, but I think yeah, it's worth a while. And I think whatever we have done on the show after launching our 100th episode recently is taking the sports from multiple stages of career, from athlete development to coach management to administration management to sports commercialization, technology, everything. And it's amazing to host somebody like you, the CEO of India on Track, who is actually working towards bringing Indian sports, getting sports in India on track. That's what I want to call it. Through commercialization to development. So for our viewers and listeners, we have Vivek Sethia, CEO of India on Track. He is a sports marketing ninja, works across multiple segments and is wearing multiple hats in Indian sports, from grassroots development to commercialization, working on getting a La Liga to India or EPL teams or Major League Baseball, basketball. I think there are multiple things that you've been doing. But Vivek, how this whole journey started? What got you to getting India on track?
So actually, when I was younger, I used to play many sports. Wasn't really great at any one particular sport, but tried my hands at multiple. I used to play basketball. I used to skate, a little bit of cricket, a little bit of football, and so on. And I mean, I was always kind of involved with various sports. And somehow in the back of my mind, I thought that maybe I never considered a career in sports, but I thought I'll retire early and maybe do some charitable work around, if I've made some money, I'll do some charitable work around sport. But when I was working in the US with a consulting firm, and a happy accident happened where I was actually hiking, and I damaged my knee while hiking,
Mhm.
and it gave me a lot of time to think, because I was just on a disability. And that's when I thought that, if I don't do it now, then what's the point? Like, what's the point of retiring early and just doing charitable stuff? So
Mhm.
that's when I decided to move back to India. The idea was always to work on the development side. I think the ideas initially were very naive, where I would say, okay, we'll set up an academy and we'll support people. And we didn't had no idea on how the commercial side of it will work, where the funding will come from, and so on. But when I moved back to India, I got really lucky. I got into an agency called Commune, with Jamie, and Jamie really groomed me. He helped me with lots of good opportunities. We delivered the commercial side of the 2011 Cricket World Cup, the 2010 Hockey World Cup. Of course, we were doing a lot of work with Mumbai Indians. And that gave me a good understanding of the industry, gave me a good network. And then in 2013 is when I, from my terrace alone and with a couple of friends, started India on Track. And that's really been the journey. So yeah, that's that's how we got into it.
So drive was always there to get Indian sports on track because we always consider to be a non-sporting nation, and it's a direction that you all want to take. We are all working towards this passionately, and I think the phenomenal work that you have done. I think it is India on track with Arsenal schools, then MLB and La Liga and everything together. I think it's a great kudos to you. Uh, so we are talking about development. We'll move to charity and
Yeah, yeah.
commercial later. But first, let's talk about development. When you actually took the development as an initiative, what were the first biggest challenges that you came across? And do you think those challenges have gone away, or the new challenges have been added towards Indian sports development?
See, the biggest challenge, in my opinion, I would say there are twofold. One is that there is this thing of that sport should be free, and I mean, it's a huge debate, so it'll be difficult to do that in the
Yeah.
next few minutes of this question. So the biggest challenge around the development side is that people don't mind paying a bill for Airtel Mobile, or don't mind paying for Nike sneakers or air purifier or whatever. But when it comes to sport training, the general view is that if somebody is providing the training, it should be free of cost. They're charging for sports, right? And actually, if you look at how development works in India, if you take any developmental initiatives, they are either charitable in nature, or
Mhm.
somebody is losing money.
Correct.
So it's one out of the two. So for us, it's a business venture. India on Track is a for-profit company. It is a private limited organization. It is funded by certain investors, and we have to make sense of the business side of it. So we are not in the privileged situation where some CSR funds are available, or charitable funds are available, saying, "Listen, invest in this." Like if you look at the JSW initiatives, that's phenomenal,
Correct.
and it's great that they don't have the commercial pressure on, especially on the development side and the training
Yeah.
side. Of course, they have tremendous pressure on the other side, but
Yeah.
so we had the pressure to actually create a business for ourselves and a sustainable venture. So, and we were fortunate that our investors were not saying that I need my money back right now. We need to make huge amounts of profit. But beyond a point, it had to achieve sustainability.
Correct.
And I think sustainability in development is still extremely difficult because one, people are not willing to pay for sports training as much as they are willing to pay for other services. And second, a lot of the talent that we find, even though I'm a believer that talent can come from anywhere, so it can be urban or rural or whatever, but a lot of talent we find are from rural areas
Yeah.
purely because of the determination to do this. I feel the urban children have way too many options, right? And urban parents, and myself included, I'm not a parent, but I would think like that also, that you want your children to be more well rounded. So I would want them to invest time in a French learning class or a guitar lesson or a
Yeah.
swimming class as well, right? But the rural kids who are good at one sport, they have really nothing to lose. They just go all in. So we are finding the talent from rural places, and we anyway have a section of the society that's not really willing to pay for training. So to create sustainability in training then becomes very difficult unless you have some charitable funds with you, and
Right.
that still remains as a big challenge. It's evolving, but that was a challenge 8 years back, and that's still a challenge today, and we continue to fight it.
Yeah. And I think rightly said, it's the rural kids have so much of fire because, as you said, nothing to lose. They have to go all out to make their living, or they make their career, or whatever they want to call it. uh, and CSR has picked up in India, but that is still being depend on somebody else. So development sustainable model is something that you've been doing is so good. But at the same time, you're getting the development model for the established international leagues or the clubs
Yeah.
we have got to India. How does that model work? Again, this sometimes it makes people feel that okay, this is for the privileged one, or this is something, it's a pay and play model. So how do you actually find the balance? Because at one side, your heart says that sports has to be free, it has
True.
to be accessible for everybody, but other sides, it has to make the business sense. So, and this question specifically for people who are listeners who want to make career in sports from the business perspective. I think that might get to learn a lot from this answer.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right. This is the biggest challenge. Like, I did not get into sports to say that we will train 10,000 kids and we'll charge them 5,000 rupees a month and make all this money. However, if the business is not sustainable, then how do you even provide training to kids who are talented?
Correct.
So we have a simple formula where we do pay for play for children who start out, and we have development and elite training, which is scholarship based for players who are talented. So it's kind of a Robin Hood model
Mhm.
where we charge from students who. So we don't necessarily only give scholarships to players who can't afford. So
Correct.
scholarships are all based on talent. So everyone starts in the what we call the grassroots funnel. People have to pay. There are some scholarships available for needy, so to speak. But as the children go up the ladder and we find talented children, and people can come directly from the above the ladder when they are talented, we have these development centers where everything is on a scholarship. So scholarships can be between 50 and 100%. And typically for every five grassroots centers, we have one development center. So
Okay.
about a fifth of the students or a sixth of the students are on a scholarship, and they are talent-based scholarships. So the grassroots centers are the pay-for-play centers. That's how we create sustainability. That's how we create a business. And the development centers are the talent centers. That's how we focus on the talented children and children who cannot afford to pay for the training.
Yeah.
I mean, Sid, honestly, we get a lot of criticism and flack. This whole pay for play model, not just us, everyone.
Yeah.
We get a lot of criticism for the fact that, like I said, you're charging for training. But I wish I had a corpus of 200 crores sitting behind me to just give free training away. And until we have that, at least us, the way we are, we have to charge for training in order to, create
Yeah.
a sustainable venture.
I, and I think it is important also when you're charging for training. It's you're finally the you're making the coaches employable, and you are giving sustainability to coaches beyond their playing career. So I think it's a model that people have to understand. So I always have this one question, and I've asked this to Gaurav, Neer also whenever I meet. What are these international clubs looking at India when they're looking at development centers like Dortmund is there, Arsenal, Liverpool, Manchester United came and went, and so many centers. Arsenal, you headed Arsenal for so many years. So what do they look in India as a thing? Because in India is still not a power when it comes to football.
Yeah, they're not looking for talent. I mean, I'll be honest here. It can be a very happy outcome if they end up finding some talent. I don't believe that anyone is really, when they look at these, whether they are smaller development centers or the larger academies like the ones with DSK and Liverpool, I don't believe that they are looking at talent and saying that can we find Indian players who can play in England or Spain or Italy or wherever, or Germany. I believe most of these deals are commercial in nature.
Mhm.
Some are more commercial than the others. And I can give you the two examples of the ones we work with. We worked with Arsenal and we are working with La Liga right now.
Right.
Um, the Arsenal deal was far more commercial minded. It was of a view that, listen, it's a license deal, and you pay us our money, you use these certain aspects of the license and run a program. It really doesn't matter what the outcome of the program is. Whereas the La Liga deal is far more evolved. La Liga is genuinely a partner in this. They co-invest with us. There is still commercials involved, but that's not the basis of the deal. They have resources put. They have La Liga coaches in India. There are scholarship programs for good talented children. We send them to Spain. There are programs where scouts from the 42 La Liga clubs are available to evaluate players and so on. It's still not a program with the view of that we'll find Indian players, but it's also not a program with the view of La Liga saying, okay, let me just make my money and you do whatever the hell you want to do. It's a far more evolved partnership, and they genuinely want to develop the market in India. There are, of course, commercial reasons behind the larger play, right? So La Liga would, but this project in itself is not like let's squeeze money out of this project, and and that's how it becomes even sustainable for us.
Right.
The Arsenal model is just not sustainable. We've seen that in Manchester United schools. We've seen that in the Liverpool academy. We've seen that in Arsenal as well. I guess Barcelona is probably one of the few where there is potentially. I mean, I don't know the details of the commercial deal, but I would imagine that there's a commercial angle to it, and it's still surviving.
Yeah.
I don't know how profitable that might be, but that model is very difficult to crack.
Yeah.
So unless you have a partner that is genuinely willing to develop their brand in the India market, and they look at the this training as a tool to do that,
Mhm.
it becomes very difficult to survive. And we've been fortunate that we've got a partner like that after lots of hits and misses.
Right. And yeah, exactly. So this is something that is very well. But suppose the parents are getting attracted to the EPL team name or the way Barca school or Arsenal school, parents are getting attracted. And there are some kids who really have talented. So what can the Indian ecosystem expect when they come here beyond that? So how do we? So basically, there's a difference in technical development. There's a difference in the methodology and all those things. So how can a parent here or a kid here can benefit from these kind of models?
See, the thing is that if we have most of the schools so far actually did not have too much technical input from the partner
Okay.
or too much technical support from the partner. Again, I don't want to talk about the others, but we did not have much from Arsenal, right? We used to have this one visit every year from their technical team, and 2 days just hygiene checks and so on. And we were pretty much on our own, like the technical team was ours and so on. But in La Liga, I'll give you an example. So pre-COVID, we had 5 La Liga UEFA Pro coaches full time in India. They were all reporting to a person who's the assistant technical director of La Liga Global, who reports to the technical head and the technical team. They used to visit once every quarter. Every single session, every single plan to the Indian coaches was discussed on a weekly, daily basis. They were train the trainers happening every quarter, if not every month. The Indian coaches were on a constant daily evaluation touch with the. So the whole ecosystem was, we are continuing to get tons of technical support from them, and that can easily be seen on the pitch. So when a parent brings their child in and they're saying that a local coaching center is charging us 1200 to 1800 rupees, let's say a bigger city, and you're charging us anywhere between 2500 or 2800, which is probably a 30-40% bump up, then what is the value of that? That value was purely not in the brand name but in the coaching. Whereas in Arsenal, we had to convince that that value is purely in the brand name, and that beyond a point becomes not so fun, because the children can get attracted to an Arsenal, at least back in the day. um, but if they're not having fun, if they're not learning, if the parents are not satisfied, how long can you really sell just a
Right.
product on the brand, right? So the product itself was weak, and I admit that, and we ran that product for many years. But with La Liga, that has changed completely. In fact, it sometimes becomes a pain, and I hope the La Liga guys are not going to hear this. The kind of over intervention, because we have lesser flexibility than to do business also, right? Sometimes you have to take business calls which are not necessarily the best technical calls, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm getting a school in the middle of nowhere in Maharashtra, and I'm probably making good money from it, I'll as a business person, I would want to do that program. But if the technical ecosystem doesn't support that,
Yeah.
La Liga will shut it down. Like La Liga will not let us do it. Whereas in the case of Arsenal, it was like literally do whatever the hell you want to do. So the parents can realistically, genuinely expect very high quality training, at least at the grassroots level. So just want to clarify, we are a grassroots company.
Correct.
We are not an elite academy, or we are not into semi-professional, professional setup. Our idea is to um, train as many people as possible at the grassroots level, so
Right.
that when they grow, there are more and more numbers who can then potentially get into the under 14, under 16 teams of different clubs or states or districts and so on. And the idea is to provide as good grassroots training as there's potentially out there in the world. That's
Right.
really the idea with La Liga.
I think this is where the whole philosophy of the company shows, right? Okay, we want to develop grounds up and find a right balance between development and commercialization. But I have read about a three-tier model of IoT that you have. So what exactly is that? And again, my most of the questions are towards the MBA students who are looking at the good sports industry, follow their passion, and come into this industry.
Yeah,
From Symbiosis, we have had few people working with for IoT as well.
yeah.
So just want to understand what that three-tier model is for IoT.
Sure. So the three-tier model is that the tier one is completely grassroots. So let's think of, so when we say grassroots, we don't necessarily talk about always age group, which is probably the conventional norm of
Yeah.
grassroots. But we mostly talk about the level of play or the talent, so to speak, or even the learning of the game. So if I don't know how to kick a ball, I'm grassroots. I might be a 15-year-old child,
Correct.
right? So tier one is simply pay for play, which is what we call as grassroots. Anyone who wants to learn the sport can join in, and we can give them a good experience and a good learning outcomes. As they develop in the sport, the tier two kicks in, which is what we have the development centers, which is what I was referring to. So one out of every five, six centers, so five plus one. Is a development center where everyone is can only be admitted through invitation
Correct.
and not through admission.
Mhm.
And In that, everyone's on a scholarship between 50 and 100%. The scholarship is need based, but the admission is talent based.
Right.
And these are non-residential in nature. This is like if we have five centers in Delhi, we'll have one more center where. And these development center students, kids will also be, so they'll have better training. They'll
Mhm.
probably, so, and they'll be on a scholarship. They will be on in probably an infrastructure which is also better, and they will have more game time. So they will actually form the IoT teams and play in the local regional leagues and so on. So that's kind of tier two. And tier three, which is kind on a hold right now, which is actually a develop an academy, a residential academy, which we were in the process of building with in Punjab with JCT. We were in the process of building for one in Kerala, and unfortunately, COVID's put both of those on
Yeah.
hold. And that's really the ultimate. So everything is taken care of there, like a regular elite academy. The training is far better. It's residential in nature. It's free of cost for everyone. Education, everything is kind of taken care of there. And those are the three models. We don't then aspire to either manage the players or to kind of have a professional setup. We then want to push out the players to various different clubs, whether they are smaller clubs,
Right.
bigger clubs, ISL clubs, IPL clubs, or I League clubs. And that's really the way we want to kind of operate. But I have to admit, the tier three has been always difficult, not just for us, everyone else in the country.
Yeah.
And but we have two very good partners in these two regions, and as soon as things start getting better, we'll be back in action with those.
Yeah, and I think that the tier three model is, I think, if you look at it, it's what Bangalore Reliance and Roundglass has some, or Sudeva has some. So that I think Bangalore and Reliance are the only two prominent ones. Otherwise, they are
Yeah,
all in pockets.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And tier three, like for us, tier three only works if there is no commercials from the
Yeah.
children, from the
Correct.
players, and that unless we have a strong tier one and potentially tier two, tier three is just not sustainable. So if you look at Bangalore or even Tata Football Academy or whoever else, they have some other commercial opportunities or charitable opportunities,
Correct.
which is leading for a tier three to exist,
Correct.
right? And I guess for us, that other commercial opportunity is a tier one. So
Mhm.
unless we have a strong enough tier one which is generating enough commercial power for us, tier three becomes absolutely impossible to run.
Correct. Correct. So Vivek, while you're talking about the sports development and technical side, IoT also has a division of education, which is towards MBA program and all those things. So how do you think is the importance of quality sports education as along with career opportunity, like how to make them employable beyond playing career? How do you think these two things matches with your philosophy and ideology?
Yeah. See, so I did not study sports management, and one of the things that always used to be coming to us was young professionals would ask us if they should study general management or sports management.
Yeah.
So that was always, I was always intrigued with these sort of discussions. And then one of the other factors was that I guess this is the most intriguing phenomena in our sports industry. If you look at the demand of jobs to supply of labor, I think the supply is far larger
Mhm.
because I mean you would also receive so many calls,
Yeah.
resumes every day saying by young people saying that we want to work in the sports industry. But if you see the demand of jobs versus supply of highly skilled quality labor, the the supply side really dips,
Yeah.
right? And so on an average day, I would be hearing like so many people saying, I want to work in sports, I want to work in sports. But whenever we want to find key
Right
quality
candidates.
people, we just can't find them. And that has been really the really kind of bothersome phenomena for the last 5, 6, 7 years I've been working
Yeah.
in IoT. And when we started the institute, that was the only point of contention, that we want to be able to create people who are industry ready. And that was it. Like, we did not want to compete with the likes of programs which are more advanced in the coaching side, in the training side, or on the research side, or whatever. We just had one vision in mind, that we want people to be industry ready.
Yeah.
And if I have to say selfishly, part of the idea of having the educational institute was also to be able to provide a good pipeline of people to
Yeah.
IoT. And we were recruiting 30, 40, 50, 60 people every year. And we thought that if we can train people based on what we want them, where we want them, that could be an interesting avenue. So the institute is very niche in nature. The institute focuses on industry outcomes, readiness, so to speak. And it's very, very, and Neil is doing an
Yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
phenomenal job there. And we didn't want to be in this space where we have 80, 100 students, and we again struggle to place them. And so we've always kept our classes niche. I mean, 20 to 25 is our sweet spot. We really focus on these students. We try to make them industry ready and then place them out. And that's really been the idea of the institute. But it also kind of goes with the larger vision of development, because we've been focusing on lots of player development and some sort of coaches development, but this is also development of
Yeah.
management students, so to speak. And I think I mean, I really feel that we are in a good space. Of course, there's other institutes that have other sorts of visions, and I think they're also doing well. But I think we want to keep ourselves niche, and we want to focus on quality input and quality output. That's how we see the institute.
Yeah. And I think somebody running the show who has got their hands dirty or actually played मिट्टी में खेले हुए लोग हैं वो, if you grow from them, you are
Absolutely.
more agile towards making it happen. I think it's a wonderful thing. And yes, I've been there with JISB from day one, supporting wherever Niels calls me. So yeah, finally we have a small industry that we all work together on multiple aspects. So coming to the last segment, Vivek, that we spoke about development and all. You as individual or as a CEO of IoT, what's your aspiration, inspiration, motivation towards the growth of or a sport industry or the IoT?
See, I actually my vision for IoT versus my vision for the industry are actually quite different, so to speak. My vision for the industry in general is I am I am all in for creating sustainable ventures and creating this industry as absolute in a form of self sustainability. And I can't emphasize this enough. If you actually, now obviously IPL has really exploded, so you can exclude the IPL franchisees. But if you look at most other ventures, they are actually 99% of sports ventures in the country are loss making and funded either by somebody's will of goodwill or will of their heart,
Yeah.
or through charity, or through an agenda which is actually not for sport. So
Correct.
there could be a project running which has some political agendas or whatever it might be, or communication or brand building agendas, and the sport might not be the forefront of it. Or there are amazing projects, but they are all charitable in nature. I mean, I was in Jamshedpur a couple of months ago, and just to be able to see the facilities there and all the that Tata Group has done is phenomenal. But at the end of the day, the young professionals coming into the industry or coming out of sports management programs, if they want to get into entrepreneurship, it's a scary space.
Yeah.
It's a scary space to be into entrepreneurship because there are the sustainability factor is very limited.
Yeah.
So I mean, I as in the industry, I definitely want to be able to support people, come up with creative business models, come up with scenarios which are where we can build organizations that are on the fundamentals of business, that are profitable, that can sustain long term, and yeah, they can have a social cause to it, and they might not choose 100% profits over the development side, but at least they can stand on their own 2 feet. So that's the vision for the industry, and in whichever way I can support that, that's definitely what I aspire to do. And as far as IoT is concerned, so one of the things we did not kind of cover, and I'll just take a minute to do that, is
Yeah.
that we have a strong vertical on the marketing side of things as well, where we work with various brands like Major League Baseball, like La Liga, like Manchester City, like Sevilla Football Club, like even brands like Apollo Tires, Budweiser, Star Sports, Hero Buyer, Dream 11, where we work on the sports marketing mandates of these organizations. And of course, different organizations will have different objectives. So a club will probably have objectives around fan creation, fan building, fan development, or even monetization. Leagues might have different objectives, broadcasters, different brands, different. Um, but as the vision for IoT is that we have been in the development side. There's a long way to go. We are now getting into the marketing side only a few years into it. We want to be able to get into the 360 degree of sports management. There's a long way to go, but and that's really the objective. So we create a genuine sports management 360-degree firm where we are in representation, in rights business, in marketing, and also development. So that's really the idea. That's lifetime worth of work already for me. So another 40 years, and then hopefully we'll be anywhere close to that. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was what's keep me kind of awake in the night thinking about these things. Yeah.
And I think that that's so nice. I was actually wanted to touch upon the pillar because we know that your work in marketing is phenomenal. So I think it's actually a nice balance. The tripod is pretty good: development, education, and marketing. I think it's a good tripod to give a right foundation. So on that, my last question to you, because of again the viewers and listeners here are from want to make a career in sports. So if you are if you want to hire somebody as a CEO of a company, if you want to hire somebody, what are the qualities that you look for people to join the sports industry, and what exactly your message to people who want to make a career in sports industry, what that could be?
See, for me, the number one is business skills, and this include things like simple things like, so if you're starting out, simple things like being able to create business plans or budgets, being able to create a presentation, good communication, of course the basics of working, having a good work ethic and working hard are important. But I think the business skills start at that's the number one. Like for me, if somebody does not know what Adidas paid United, it's fine. I mean, that's really not, it's not a general knowledge quiz that I'm looking for, but basic business skills. But somebody cannot create a budget for me,
Hmm.
then that becomes impossible to work on. But one of the things that is really evolving is the sports marketing side and digital marketing. And for people, and sports marketing has typically been the most I would say lucrative for young people, because I've gone through the same journey. So for people listening in who want to start out, and if marketing is interesting, then digital marketing is really the way to go. Even if you don't want to invest time in a sports marketing degree, having a smaller digital marketing kind of expertise or knowledge is something which can really make you employable at the moment. And there are many agencies, many which are bigger than ours, that are focused on that. A lot of the Indian IPL, ISL, Kabaddi teams employ agencies. The international clubs and leagues all employ agencies. So this is an area where people can look at entering. But yeah, business skills is first, and then specific functional skills like marketing, like finance, are come as second. And then I guess the industry knowledge is for me the third tier. So knowing the deals and knowing who's done what is actually lesser important. Of course, if you're doing digital marketing for an IPL team and if you don't understand cricket, then becomes a challenge. So loving the sport and loving, knowing about the sport is critical as well. But business skills are far more critical than that.
Yeah. So I think you summed it pretty well. This was kind of, I know it was 30-35 minutes, but it was a masterclass when it comes to what Indian sporting ecosystem is and how to get India on track, the sports in India on track. Thank you, Vivek, for wonderful session, and we would like to host you for more and more chats. Honestly speaking, because
Absolutely.
there's so much to learn for the industry people who are making career in this. And as we discussed earlier, it cannot be captured everything in 30 minutes time.
Absolutely.
But I would love to host you on more and more chats talking about Indian sports development, Indian commercialization, marketing all together.
Absolutely.
So
No,
have
absolute
great.
pleasure, Sid. And I know it's taken us 100 episodes, but I think it should not take us 100 more before we do another one. So
For sure.
thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
Thank you.
Cheers. All right. Thanks, Sid. Bye.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking and thank you for sharing. But please do subscribe to our channel Sportsy Says and help us spread the word about Sportsy. We go with the same handle Sportsy Says across all the social media platforms and podcasts.